What if the band built on harmony couldn't let their own singers ride the same elevator? Three Dog Night became one of the most successful American bands of the early 1970s, while Chuck Negron's heroin addiction slowly hollowed out the life around him. He stole from Gregg Allman. He lied his way off a tour. He missed the Wonderland murders by hours. And it took 37 rehab attempts before he finally found peace. This is the Chuck Negron problem Three Dog Night couldn't survive. By the late 1970s, Three Dog Night had achieved something almost no band in American history could claim. 21 consecutive top 40 hits, 12 gold albums. They had become one of the defining hit machines of the era, dominating radio and selling records at a pace few acts could match. And behind all of it, hidden beneath the harmonies and the smiles and the perfectly arranged vocal takes, the band was quietly dying. The sold-out arenas were still happening. The lights still blazed. The crowd still roared. But backstage, the silence was deafening. Band members passed each other without speaking. Road managers whispered in hallways. Dressing rooms that had once hummed with laughter and competitive banter had gone cold and quiet. The joyful chaos of three enormous personalities competing for the same spotlight had been replaced by something nobody wanted to name. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. At the center of it all was Chuck Negron, the golden boy, the beautiful ballad singer, the voice behind Joy to the World and One. The man who had helped build this machine was now the man tearing it apart one needle at a time. His heroin addiction had progressed far beyond a secret that could be managed or quietly contained. It had become an operational catastrophe. He showed up late. He nodded off. He disappeared for hours before showtime. The road crew was no longer managing a touring rock band. They were managing the physical survival of a man who was actively destroying himself in real time. Every show was a question. Every night, someone had to find Chuck and make sure he could stand upright long enough to get on the stage. The arena still filled with cheering fans. But the man they were cheering for was barely holding on behind the curtain. Danny Hutton and Corey Wells watched it happen. They felt the helplessness that comes from watching a brother vanish in plain sight, replaced by something desperate and hollow wearing his face. The chemistry that had once made Three Dog Night electric, that fierce, joyful competition between three enormous personalities, had curdled into exhaustion and quiet rage. The strange part was this. The very force that was destroying Three Dog Night was the same force that had made them extraordinary in the first place. The story began in late 1960s Los Angeles, in the experimental, restless, creative climate of a city that was rewriting American music almost daily. Danny Hutton had a vision that was radical in its simplicity. Instead of one frontman, he wanted three distinctive lead singers, each with a completely different voice, a different personality, a different way of commanding a room. Hutton himself was the arranger's arranger, meticulous, production-obsessed, a man who had once auditioned for the Monkees and understood commercial music the way a watchmaker understood gears. He brought in Corey Wells, a blues-drenched powerhouse from Buffalo who had paid his dues in the smoky dive bars of the Sunset Strip, a man who was more grounded and disciplined than the chaos around him. And then, there was Chuck Negron. Negron had grown up in the Bronx, and by his own accounts, he was performing at the Apollo Theater in Harlem as a teenager. He was tall, magnetic, impossibly handsome, a ballad singer of breathtaking emotional range who could take a song apart at the seams and rebuild it into something that made strangers weep. He was, by every visible measure, the golden boy of the group. Where Wells was the gritty professional and Hutton was the meticulous craftsman, Negron was the flame. Unpredictable, brilliant, and impossible to look away from. Together with a tight, accomplished backing band, the three of them officially became Three Dog Night, a name suggested by Hutton's girlfriend, June Fairchild, drawn from an Australian Aborigine tradition of judging the cold of a winter night by how many dogs were needed for warmth. 3 dogs, 3 voices, 3 sources of heat. The name captured the entire philosophy of the band, that together they could survive anything the cold music industry threw at them. Their debut at the Whiskey A Go Go in 1968 confirmed that the concept worked. The vocal chemistry was combustible. The competition between them, subtle, unspoken, intensely professional, pushed each singer to deliver performances of extraordinary power. They covered Harry Nilsson's One, Laura Nyro's Eli's Coming, Randy Newman's Strange and Cynical, Mama Told Me Not to Come, and turned every one of them into gold. What made Three Dog Night unique was not just the voices themselves, but the creative tension between them. Each singer quietly fought for the right to carry a lead vocal, and that rivalry sharpened everything. On record, it produced tightly wound, emotionally precise performances. On stage, it produced a competitive electricity that audiences could feel without being able to name exactly what they were experiencing. They were not performing together so much as they were competing together, and the competition made both the music and the men better than they could have been alone. By 1970, Mama Told Me Not to Come reached #1, with Corey Wells delivering the lead vocal with the coiled energy of a man barely holding himself together at the world's most debauched party. That same year, Chuck Negron's Joy to the World would sit at #1 for 6 consecutive weeks. The machine was running perfectly. Every gear meshed, every harmony landed. But success at that scale does something to people. It always does. By 1971 and 1972, Three Dog Night had crossed a threshold that very few American bands ever reached. They were no longer simply popular. They were a phenomenon. Private jets, huge festival crowds, fans mobbing them at airports, a touring machine generating money, fast enough that nobody could quite track where all of it was going. At the Dallas Cotton Bowl, Rod Stewart and the Faces opened for them before an enormous crowd. At Dallas Love Field, they were mobbed on the tarmac by a screaming, surging mass of fans. Danny Hutton performed one night visibly injured from a car accident because the idea of canceling was simply inconceivable. The machine did not stop. For Chuck Negron, this level of fame, sudden, enormous, entirely unearned by anything in his previous life, was intoxicating before the heroin ever entered the picture. He was, in his own estimation, living without limits. He embraced the rock star lifestyle with a completeness that went far beyond what the era's casual excess could explain or excuse. He later reflected, openly and without self-pity, that he loved getting high, that it became his life, that for a long time, he had no desire to stop. The drug use began recreationally and escalated with the quiet efficiency of a disease that knows exactly how to avoid detection until it is too late. Cocaine gave way to heroin. Heroin gave way to a daily, consuming dependency that cost thousands of dollars and reshaped every priority in his life. His focus shifted entirely. Securing the next supply became the central organizing principle of his existence, quietly pushing everything else, the music, the band, the people who loved him, toward the margins. The tragedy was that the machine kept making money, so nobody stopped it early. The enablers around the band, management, crew, label representatives, had every financial incentive to look past what was happening to the man at the center of it. As long as Negron could still walk onto a stage and open his mouth, the revenue justified the tolerance. The golden voice was still producing golden records. The reckoning could wait. And so it did. Season after season, while the damage compounded beneath the surface like a debt, no one was willing to open the envelope and read. Corey Wells, who remained more stable than the others throughout this period, watched with growing discomfort. Hutton, whose own relationship with substances was complicated, felt the internal compass of the group beginning to tilt. The friendly competition that had once pushed everyone higher was beginning to be replaced by something darker: resentment, distrust, and the creeping awareness that one member of the band was no longer competing at all. The light that had made Negron magnetic was still there, briefly, in moments. But the darkness was winning. He was simply disappearing. By 1974 and into 1975, the commercial numbers told a story that could no longer be rationalized away. The album, Coming Down Your Way, underperformed badly, landing far below the level Three Dog Night had reached at their peak. For a band that had generated 12 gold albums, the downturn landed like a physical blow. The music industry was shifting beneath their feet. Disco was ascending. FM radio was fragmenting. The formula that had turned outside songwriting into chart dominance was losing its power, but the external pressures, real as they were, did not account for the full collapse. The internal collapse had arrived first. Negron's addiction had moved beyond a private struggle into a crisis that directly compromised the band's ability to function. He was stealing from people around him, including, in one particularly shocking incident, lifting Gregg Allman's personal watch and pawning it for drug money. He was purchasing pharmaceuticals by the thousands in desperate attempts to maintain some baseline of physical stability. The man who had once been the most dazzling presence in any room was reduced to calculating how to get through the next 12 hours. Danny Hutton had increasingly assigned Negron the band's most demanding ballad leads, including the emotionally devastating "The Show Must Go On," which peaked at number 4 in 1974. Because Negron's raw ballad ability remained, even in his deteriorating state, genuinely extraordinary. But the same assignment that honored Negron's talent also placed the band's performance reliability in the hands of a man who was becoming less reliable by the week. The interpersonal breakdown accelerated. Hutton and Wells could no longer maintain the fiction that this was a functioning partnership of equals. Tour managers were quietly instructed to arrange the band members' hotel logistics so the 3 vocalists would not accidentally share an elevator. If there was only one elevator in the building, one singer was assigned to wait on the first floor. If there were 2, each was assigned a specific one. The road manager became a kind of emotional traffic cop, routing 3 men around each other with the care of someone navigating a minefield. 3 men whose voices had blended so perfectly on record that they sounded like a single instrument, now unable to share an enclosed space for 30 seconds. The warmth that gave the band its very name had turned to cold. The final studio album of the classic era, American Pastime, released in March 1976, was a commercial disaster of the first order. Its single, Everybody is a Masterpiece, failed to enter the American Hot 100 at all. The machine had stopped producing. The question was no longer how to save the band. The question was whether the band still existed at all. The final performance of Three Dog Night's classic era took place on July 26, 1976, at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. Danny Hutton was not on the stage. He had already been pushed out due to his own substance struggles. Only 3 original members performed that night, and what they delivered was marked not by triumph, but by the quiet exhaustion of men who had been carrying something too heavy for too long. When it ended, the band officially dissolved. There was no dramatic announcement, no stadium farewell, just a last note, a final bow, and a silence that settled in like fog. The reunion of 1981 briefly reignited hope. The 3 vocalists gathered to record and tour again, and audiences responded with genuine enthusiasm, hungry for the harmonies that had soundtracked their youth. But what the other members did not know, could not have known, was that Negron had never stopped using. He had hidden the depth of his addiction with the practiced skill of a man who had been concealing it for years. He showed up to rehearsals, he sang the songs, he smiled for the cameras, and then he disappeared into the dark. His life during this period was not the story of a struggling rock star. It was the story of a man at the absolute margins of survival. He traded a Hollywood Hills villa for a corner of an abandoned building where he slept on a filthy mattress. His 6'1" frame dropped to a skeletal 126 pounds. He moved through the criminal underworld of Los Angeles with a recklessness that repeatedly brought him within reach of death. On July 1st, 1981, Negron had been a regular visitor to a house on Wonderland Avenue in Laurel Canyon, a known drug distribution point. That evening, 4 people inside the house were brutally murdered in what became known as the Wonderland Gang killings. Negron had been scheduled to buy drugs there that night. He did not go. He never fully explained why. The margin between his life and that crime scene was measured in hours.
Just an old-fashioned love song.
The final break came in late 1985. The band had committed to a major booked tour. Weeks of scheduled dates, financial obligations, crew, and venues all locked in. On the eve of the tour, Negron approached his bandmates with a story about a dental emergency. He told them his teeth were hurting badly, and he needed to see his doctor. He left. He did not go to a dentist. He went to find heroin. The band was left holding a financial catastrophe, committed dates they could not honor without their lead singer, money already spent on preparations they could not recover. The betrayal was complete. Hutton and Wells fired him permanently. Removing Chuck Negron may have been the only decision left available to them, but it also confirmed what had been true for years. By the time Chuck was gone, the version of Three Dog Night that millions of fans had loved was already gone too. The firing was not the end of the story. It was simply the moment they finally admitted the story had already ended. Chuck Negron's road back from the abyss was not short, and it was not clean. He checked himself into rehabilitation programs 37 times before achieving lasting sobriety, each one a beginning that collapsed back into the same darkness. Each one a failure that made the next attempt feel more impossible than the last. He burned through his fortune at a staggering rate, $20,000 a week at the worst of it, until there was nothing left to burn. The breakthrough came in September 1991 at a rehab facility in Los Angeles. A close friend visited him during a period of severe physical withdrawal and told him simply to pray, to ask for acceptance of God's will and release his grip on the outcome. Negron prayed, fell into an exhausted sleep in genuine physical agony, and woke to find that the obsessive craving had lifted. He never used again. He rebuilt his life with the same discipline the disease had once stolen from him. He wrote his autobiography, Three Dog Nightmare, a candid and unflinching account of his descent and recovery that became widely read in addiction and recovery circles. He performed as a solo artist, singing the songs he had made famous, connecting with audiences who had grown up with his voice and now witnessed what it had cost him to preserve it. Corey Wells, who had remained more stable than the others and continued touring with Danny Hutton under the Three Dog Night banner, passed away peacefully in his sleep on October 20th, 2015. His death erased any remaining possibility of a full original reunion and closed a chapter on the band's story that had been quietly open for decades. Between Negron and Hutton, the silence persisted for years. When a documentary filmmaker asked Hutton directly whether he would ever speak to Chuck Negron again, Hutton's answer was flat and immediate. Absolutely not. No way. But something eventually shifted. The years wore down the walls. The anger, as Hutton himself would later acknowledge, always came from hurt. And hurt, given enough time and enough distance, sometimes softens into something more honest. The bitterness that had calcified over decades of silence began, slowly, to give way to something else entirely. The two men met. A documentary crew captured the moment. They embraced, they wept. Hutton later described the reconciliation as wonderful and as a great relief, a release from something he had been carrying far too long. The three dogs who had once needed each other for warmth finally found their way back to the same room. Chuck Negron passed away on February 2nd, 2026, at the age of 83 from pulmonary disease and heart failure. He died sober, at peace, and reconciled with the brother the music had first brought him to, and the addiction had nearly taken forever. Three Dog Night proved that the greatest harmonies can emerge from the deepest discord. Their story reminds us that success and happiness are not the same thing, that the music we love often comes at a terrible cost to those who create it. But it also reminds us that redemption is possible, that survival matters, and that sometimes the art outlives the pain that created it. What is your memory of Three Dog Night? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more trips through music's past.